Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Catano, and today I will talk and share to all my literature and life topic, and I'll explain in detail a summarized version of what I've found out and the interesting details of what I've learned. The topic I chose was the evolution of women in literature. I focus more on American and British women's literature. I will give you key details and background information about each woman's author and how some American women authors were inspired by other British women writers and authors by their techniques and styles. You have many different types of women writers such as Anne Bradstreet, Mary Rowlandson, Elizabeth Gaskell, even to today's modern women's writers such as Elaine Snowwater and Maxine Hong Kingston. To give background information, these women writers, along with many others, are examples of how each conquer above all odds and dominate the writing landscape. But it took a lot of work to get there. For example, when you go back to Anne Bradstreet, she immigrated from England, and during that time, most English women didn't have much to say in society. That carried all the way to when they moved to the United States um, to conquer the new land. Didn't really have much to say, and mostly the men did most of the jobs and mostly did the most of the jobs in society. And she literally pointed that it wasn't right, that everybody should have an equal say in society. When you go up to Mary Rowlandson, you look at her difficulties and issues. She was kidnapped by Indian tribes, and it was really scary because along it was with her three children. She had to go through the Indians' way of life, their diet, food, and learning on their techniques, and how to cooperate with them, their language, to that way she was able to survive. There's many other ones such as Elizabeth Gaskell. She her most of her writing was more of autobiography. She described upon her earlier years that she lost most of her family members. Mostly it was her siblings because of poor health, or some of them felt depressed. They had a lot of anxiety based on life. Other ones such as George Eliot, she was more into scientific literature and more about reasoning. She wrote most of scientific knowledge and writing to get a better sense of how people were feeling and that type of connections. When you look at the differences, there are some differences between them. British literature has existed for a very long time, whereas American literature is kind of new. It has been there for about 270-ish years. Uh, the British has been there for a very long time, even from centuries. And then, of course, when you look at the British literature, is more of tradition and culture, whereas American literature is more of the historic periods and political implications. However, there are some similarities, and there are some American women writers that were inspired, or they have common connections between them. If you look at today, modern writers such as Elaine Snowwater, she was mostly inspired by George Eliot and Charlotte Bronte, by their domestic life and what they were writing about in their diaries and autobiographies, even into their fictional writing styles. You also look at other people such as Margaret Cole. She was inspired by the revolution of women writers back in British history, where they focus more on the race, class, and gender, and the political implications, and she was inspired by it to have their own say, and she brought most of that to American life. So there is a common similarity there. Also, you have Maxine Hong Kingston. She was an immigrant from China. Well, she was born in the United States, but her parents are immigrants from China, where she faced discrimination, uh, intimidation from her own class, and there was a little bit more of like a common ground with Anne Bradstreet, some of her writing and that type of stuff, because she was same thing, came from a new land, immigrated, but of course she was intimidated by the men and just by society, same as her. So there are some similarities between them. But all in all, because of the women writers, today most women writers continue to express themselves in the many different techniques and inspire the generations to come. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.